Well, you want to be careful with how much oil you put on your higher end swords. If you put too much oil, what it's going to do is change the humidity in the scabbard and the saya, and it will oxidize quicker. You have to remember that these scabbards are made of a certain type of wood. This is an old koa katana. It's very small. It's almost like a wakizashi. It's considered a katana, but it's very small. This is an antique. It's about 300 to 400 years old. It is a Nihon to. This is made of tamahagane steel, which has a very open grain to it. This is the simple saya or scabbard to this sword. It is the original saya, and these were often made of magnolia wood, honoki or yellow wood. And the type of wood that they used was easy to carve, but it had very little oil in it, low oil content, so it would not oxidize the sword. When you have your sword, the saya not only protects the blade and other people and you, it keeps the humidity down. It keeps the sword in this case here in a special environment, so to speak. So a lot of times people over oil their swords. Now with this tamahagane here, I'm only going to use what this is called choji oil. It's a trusted oil that they've been using for hundreds of years, so I'm going to use it here. There are modern oils such as this knife and blade oil, which I use on higher end swords, but not ones made of tamahagane. I think it would work fine on that, but I'm not going to try it just to know. I'm not going to risk losing the blade if this had some sort of synthetic stuff in it, but I use this for higher end swords, and actually any knife or blade will work very well with that. Today I'm going to use choji oil. So the first thing I'm going to do here is just wipe this beautiful old blade off of excess oil, and you can use an uchiko ball if you have a kit. I'm just going to use a soft microfiber cloth here. So as you can see, if I take this oil and I do this, can you see that? It's hard to see. That's way too much oil. And even if I distribute it, which I'm going to do now, here I'm going to just wipe it down the blade. I can see, it's very hard to tell, but that's puddling up, it's pooling up on there, it's streaking, and if I put that back, it could oxidize. It could make it worse. I'm not going to redo this, but I'm going to wipe most of this excess oil off. I'm not pressing too hard so that it's a light film on there. It's not heavy, it's not pooling up. It almost looks like there's no oil on there, but there is. That is the right amount to store your blades. Okay, and how long should you oil them in between? It depends on your environment, your humidity, where you live. If you're cutting, do it all the time. Wipe it after almost every cut. But if you're not doing tameshigiri, I do not with this old blade because it's an antique. I'm not going to risk cutting bamboo or anything with it. I don't know, every month or so I'll oil these down. This is a beautiful katana here. It's huge, it's beefy, it's modern made. It's not tamahagane steel, but it is folded and differential tempered here. You can see that there's a grain hara pattern all throughout. It's very hard to see. The hamon's beautiful. This is a very high-end sword. I am going to wipe this down. It needs an oiling, and I'm just simply going to remove the excess here. Again, you can use your uchiko ball with the powder if you want to get more off, but I'm just wiping this for today's video quickly. This one I'll use this type of knife blade oil. It works fine. You only need a drop or two. I'm going to put a little bit, just a touch, and I'm going to distribute it down on both sides. All the way down to the kisaki here. Just a light coat. Don't put it on too heavy, or you're going to risk staining your blade, which I have done. See, it's not difficult. And I'm going to put it back in the saya. I don't know what the saya's wood is made of. This is a really beautiful saya here. It's probably made of honoki wood, I'm guessing, magnolia wood. Now, if you have something like this, which is just aluminum alloy, you don't have to oil those at all. If it's stainless steel, aluminum alloy, it's just a cheap blade for decoration only. You don't need anything. You could actually use Windex and paper towel. I mean, you could oil it, but there's no purpose. I'm just going to wipe this down here because it does not have an open grain, and you can see that's just as good as the day I bought it. So you don't need to oil something like that. If you have an Iaito like this one here, which does not have a handmade blade, you can just see it's etched on here. The hamon's etched. Again, you do not have to oil this. It's either stainless steel or some sort of cheaper steel without an open grain, so you don't have to worry much about that. I'm not going to oil this down at all. I can just tell by the polish and stuff on it, it's not going to rust easily. I mean, if you soaked it in water, of course it would rust. But it's a good idea, it's a good habit, I should say, to wipe down all your swords. And then apply a thin coat of choji or knife oil. So the main thing is, if you're going to use this stuff, don't put on too much, because it'll actually ruin and stain your blade. And again, I've done that many times over the years. A thin, even coat is what is required. How often? It depends. Every month, every couple months in storage. Shirasai even less, because that's a really dry wood and it's meant to control the environment. If you're doing tameshigiri outside, carry a rag with you, wipe the blade after every couple of cuts. I have cut plants in the woods where I've been out hiking with a, mid-budget $500 sword, and just cutting a couple of plants, not knowing what I was cutting, it literally rusted the blade within an hour, because we don't know what's in the plant. They have special medicinal properties and all kinds of acids in them that break things down. So if you go out in the woods and you're cutting pine trees and branches and brush and all that stuff, you have to wipe your blade constantly, or by the time you walk home from your hike, your blade is going to be quite stained. Now, it'll come off, but make sure you keep these. It's a general rule with all firearms, all knives, all swords. Keep them in maintenance, keep them up to date, and you can enjoy them for a very, very long time. Alright, if you have any comments or questions, put them below. What type of oils do you use? Do you use modern oils? Do you use the old sword kits? What's your method of doing it? How often do you do it? What's worked? What errors have you made? If you can share those below in your comments. As a community, we can help each other out so we don't make the same mistakes that I have done. Thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate your time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.